Hello and welcome back to Getting Cozy with the Cosmos. I am your host, Sarah Posh, astrologer and coach. If you've been with me before, thank you. Welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel and the podcast where we cozy up, we light our candles. We've got our Palo Santo today, and we just talk cosmos. This is going to be one of our special new episodes where I'm going to go through the Pisces full moon, which is actually a total lunar eclipse. And I'm going to do a brief rising sign horoscope for each rising sign. And then I'm going to pull one tarot card for each horoscope, each rising sign. And this can just be kind of that final intuitive message to open you up to receive the most out of this Pisces full moon total lunar eclipse. Eclipses are always these times of intense major changes and accelerated beginnings and endings. Eclipses always bring these kind of karmic and fated turning points. If you didn't already, I encourage you to check out the episode that was released last week where I did a little focused deep dive all about eclipses, and I talked about the difference between the different astrological traditions and how they interpret and work with eclipses. I work with traditional Hellenistic astrology, so my perspective is really rooted in the natal promise or natal context when we're talking about eclipses and their significations or their potential impact on the individual. It really depends on how this is impacting what's already in the birth chart. So check out that episode if you haven't already, and just remember that this is a lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses, our key phrase is major endings or completions. So we're talking about fated events that are either bringing things to a close, a chapter to a close, or there's circumstances that are changing and developing in a way that represents and reflects this turning point, a completion of one phase in respect to the fruition potentially of what's ready to go into the next phase. Almost kind of like accelerating that transition, that turning point, and that move towards the next phase, the next chapter. So the way that I formatted these horoscopes for each rising sign is based off of the major astrological significations playing into this Pisces total lunar eclipse. The first one is being that Saturn in Pisces is now back in Pisces for its final chapter of that transit, the transit that opened back in March 2023. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're also going to talk about Jupiter in Cancer. What's really exciting about this full moon, this total lunar eclipse in Pisces, is that not only is it ruled by this Jupiter that is in exaltation in Cancer, it's also going to make an exact trine immediately after the lunation to that Jupiter in Cancer. So really exciting. And then following the days after this full moon, we're going to get a really special Sun-Mercury conjunction, also known as a cazimi. And this cazimi is extra special because they're each going to take turns crossing over that south node in Virgo. And then right after they cross the south node, this kind of karmic release point, this emptying and letting go, then they come into this conjunction, this superior cazimi, where Mercury is going to begin a new cycle. And it's happening not only in Mercury's place of domicile, but also it's Mercury's exaltation. So Mercury's got extra dignity as it's crossing through the heart of the sun. And then at the end of this full moon week, both the sun and Mercury after the cazimi are kind of taking whatever clarity comes from the cazimi and giving it a boost with a trine to Jupiter in Cancer. So lots of exciting developments coming in the week of this total lunar eclipse Pisces full moon. If you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel, turn your notifications on. That way you'll never miss any of these episodes. And if you're looking to learn more about some of the services that I offer, the different programs, the digital products, even the Spotify playlist that I create for each lunar cycle, you can find all of that linked below. Before I dive into each rising sign, I just want to let you know that there's going to be timestamps. So that way you can go ahead, look at those timestamps, and if you don't want to listen to every single rising sign, you can just jump ahead to your rising sign. All right, so in true Aries fashion, Aries rising, you're first. So Aries. Since March 2023, how have you been working with Saturn in developing and maturing your relationship to matters of the 12th house? This has to do with topics of self-sabotaging patterns. It also has to do with our relationship to the requirement of rest and kind of retreating away from the everyday, mundane, obligations of life, and also your relationship to solitude. that time to just take away and self-reflect. What lessons have you learned with Saturn and Pisces around honoring the wisdom of grief? This place in the chart has a lot to do with endings and closure. So, what have you been learning and maturing your emotional relationship with around resolution with endings, around honoring the cycles and time of grief? Aries, this Pisces total lunar eclipse is bringing fated changes to your circumstances and potentially major completions related to all of these lessons you've been learning with Saturn. It's going to be a potential karmic ripening of the intentions and efforts you've been putting in to this place of life, bringing in the polarity of the Virgo South Node and the cazimi that's happening here. This full moon week during the total lunar eclipse, you might be hearing echoes from your past that are telling you what it is that is still standing in your way, like what still needs to change in regards to matters of your sixth house. So, your lifestyle, your daily habits, your relationship to your body and your physical health, or maybe your relationship to catching or recognizing any physical dis-ease in the body. And so, paying attention, Aries, what are you being asked to let go of? What are you being asked to bring to a close or to interrupt a long-standing pattern and finally maybe bring it to an end? What do you need to change up here, Aries? It's probably going to be obvious. Pay attention to any clues trying to point you forward in a new direction. New steps you can take, new changes you can implement, maybe new health habits or routines that you can start to install. And the way that you're really going to access that Jupiter in Cancer, feeling almost this wind at your back, accelerating and uplifting you forward into your next phase or your future trajectory, is if you lean more into the Cancer fourth house areas of your life. So, how can you enrich your roots? By deepening your sense of internal safety and security. How can you elevate your relationship to any family dynamics or ancestral karma that might be coming up? Your relationship to your foundations and your home, if you invest here, this is where Jupiter is going to say yes and propel you forward in a way that feels so supportive, so helpful. I just want to point out, Aries, like all of these places that this eclipse is pointing to, they're all some of the hidden or underground places in our lives. This is a time to kind of draw that energy in and down. And the more you do that, the more it's going to feel like this eclipse is working with and for you versus just chaotically shaking shit up. All right, Aries, let's pull your card. Okay, so Aries rising, your card, your message to carry through is this Page of Pentacles. This is about the material, physical world. And the page is always bringing in new energy. It's about leading with curiosity. It's about really trusting the things that we're focusing on around our physical security and our physical ambitions. So this could be material wealth or material ambitions, but because we're thinking about your horoscope and it has so much to do with home, in this card, the page is solely focused on this soul pentacle that it's holding. You know, it has this whole backdrop, the whole world is kind of behind it. But I see this as you really focusing on where does everything start from? You know, if you trust that if you focus on this one thing, which can be what is the definition of security for you, Aries? What is the new definition? What is the future definition of feeling secure, feeling a sense of home within yourself, within your life? What does that look like? And can you prioritize that? Can you put that in front of everything else and then kind of engage with life, engage in new things or taking new actions or new ventures that are really aligned with supporting the fruition of this? So stay curious, stay open, stay grounded, and like don't be afraid to look away from everything else around you or behind you. All you have to focus on is this one new beginning. It's like foundation. I love that. I have to flip the other card. Let's just see. Oh, Aries rising. It was the Hermit. All right. Sorry. I hope I didn't yell in your ear, but yeah. Okay. Hi. Hello, Saturn in Pisces in the 12th house. Like you need to go within. This is all about that internal light and also trusting your internal wisdom. So knowing when to go into the cave and knowing that going into that cave can bring so much fruitful insight, wisdom, and energy to bring without. Like if you put energy into, pouring into that 12th house to create that internal light, that internal lantern, then you can go anywhere at any time of the day and night because you have this lantern with you to guide you. Oh, Aries, that was so cute. I hope you like that. All right, so that's Aries rising. Now let's move into Taurus and Taurus rising, where this eclipse is connecting your future vision with creativity. So Taurus rising, since March 2023, how have you been working with Saturn to mature and develop your authority with matters of the 11th house? So we're talking about hopes and wishes for the future, your friendships and alliances, how you're able to accept or receive support from potential benefactors, and how you've been developing meaningful connections on collective and social networks. So, what lessons, Taurus and Taurus rising, have you learned about honoring the wisdom of faith to mature your confidence in reaching your goals or ambitions for the future? So, this Pisces lunar eclipse is bringing some faded changes to the circumstances, maybe some major completions or rewards that are going to be reflecting the karmic ripening of these intentions and efforts you've been putting in with Saturn since March 2023. And you'll want to pay attention. You might be hearing some echoes from your past in this week telling you what's standing in the way of your fresh beginnings and what is obvious that it needs to change or come to an end in relationship to your fifth house matters. So for Taurus and Taurus rising, it's about recognizing where you're ready to let go and start new chapters when it comes to your relationship to this house of creativity, of joy, of pleasure, and pleasure seeking. It's a place of fertility, of children, and creative self expression. Taurus rising, what is your relationship to fun and play? And what about that relationship is blocking you from being able to receive this momentum, this new, exciting new chapter to begin? How do you need to change that relationship? Taurus rising, let's be honest, you've got Virgo in the fifth house. It probably has something to do with perfectionism. Like, this isn't about being perfect. This isn't about getting it right. This is about doing something for fun. So this is about getting out of your own way and finally saying, I'm ready to just let that go. I'm ready to open myself up to a new orientation around these topics of joy, of pleasure, of fun, and let go of the old cycles. And as you open yourself to release and invite these changes, pay attention. There might be some new clarity that starts to crystallize around what this new relationship could look like, or maybe your next best steps to take that are going to move you forward into these new chapters that are opening for you. And Taurus rising, you are going to feel the Jupiter and Cancer wind at your back, uplifting and accelerating you forward into the next phase of your future trajectory if you lean more into trusting and prioritizing your focus on third house matters. So this is the place of skill development. It's a place of communication, our local environment, our close friends or peer relationships, potentially sibling relationships as well. And then also our daily rhythms, our daily routines and rituals, our schedules, the way that we flow through the day, the routes that we take to the grocery stores that we go. This Jupiter in Cancer is going to help you by you elevating your investment in your communication skills. Jupiter in Cancer is asking you, how can you enrich your life's daily rhythms? And how will that expand your capacity to do more of what actually gives you energy and inspiration? So focusing on the day-to-day, focusing on those rhythms, those routines, those rituals, that's actually where you make the most magic happen. All right, Taurus, let's pull your card. We've got the King of Wands. Yeah, this is having creative authority. This is about giving your creativity and inspiration the freaking throne, babe. Like Taurus rising, you will be propelled in a direction that feels so exciting and fulfilling to you if you're willing to trust that the more you put your joy, your creativity, your inspiration at the helm of whatever you're doing, the more you're going to feel like you're in the right direction, that everything kind of cohesively fits in a bigger picture. And that might be a little scary, but like, you're fearless. Just keep looking forward, keep that staff of creativity and that inspiration in your hand. I love that for you, Taurus rising. Okay, so Taurus, that is your horoscope. If any of this is resonating, by the way, or it's not resonating, whatever, I'm open for it all. Give me that feedback. Go ahead, comment below. Taurus rising, what are you feeling? What are you going through? What's it bringing up for you? And what are you most excited about? I mean, Taurus rising, like, I think yours is a pretty fun and exciting reading, if we're being honest. Now we move on to Gemini rising, where career, home, and resources are the focus. So Gemini rising, how's it going? How you doing? Comment below. What you feeling? Gemini rising since March 2023. How have you been working with Saturn to mature and develop authority with matters of your 10th house? So this has to do with your career, your legacy that you're going to leave in the world, your public reputation and roles, or maybe leadership roles that you're being offered to take responsibility, step into more responsibility here. What lessons have you learned about responsible leadership and what that means to you and how you want to invoke more of that into your career, into your work life? And maybe think about what are the ways that you can work with Saturn in this final chapter? What are you still hungry for in regards to being recognized in work, in the work environment? What are you hungry to learn or grow and mature before Saturn officially leaves Pisces in the beginning of 2026? This Pisces total lunar eclipse is going to bring fated changes in your circumstances, these karmic turning points related to matters of the career. And it's going to reflect this sort of karmic ripening of the intentions and the efforts you've been pouring into. There's maybe a reward or a recognition that's going to come. Or there's an obvious recognition of where you've been denying that responsibility or that work. So pay attention to that. And Gemini rising, you might be hearing the echoes from your past that are telling you what it is that's standing in the way of these fresh beginnings, telling you what needs to change in your 4th house of home and foundation. So Gemini rising this week, listen for clues around how you can develop a deeper sense of internal safety and security. What is it that you need to let go of that's preventing a more solid foundation for you to feel and thrive from? This is also going to ask you, what baggage do you maybe still carry around ancestral karma? So bringing that up for the opportunity to say, I'm establishing something different. I get to establish my own definition of home base. So think about and listen for those echoes of the past and what it is that you're interrupting, or what major cycles you're bringing into a place of completion at the time of this full moon total lunar eclipse. And then as you release and invite those changes, pay attention. Notice there might be some helpful clues or hints or insights with that Mercury Sun cazimi that are showing you what are the next best steps to take to further deepen my healthy root system. The deeper you root, the greater you rise, Gemini rising. And you will feel the Jupiter in Cancer wind at your back, accelerating and uplifting you forward into the next phase. If you lean more into trusting and prioritizing your investment in matters of the 2nd house. This is the house of personal resources. Sometimes we think about that in a very material way, like money, right? It's where our livelihood exists. But there's other parts of being resourced, and there's other parts of the 2nd house that you can tap into that maybe you haven't been really tapping into. How can you invest into your own innate talents and gifts, and also your sense of validation and value for what talents and gifts you have that are a resource for your life, your happiness, and your livelihood? So how can you expand your capacity to recognize the value that you already have? How can you elevate your relationship to abundance by practicing more gratitude for what you already have, for what's already here? These are the ways that Jupiter is going to help you the most. All right, Gemini rising. Let's pull your card. Okay, so Gemini rising, 6 of Cups. This is all about our relationship to nostalgia, right? So the past, we talked about that with that fourth house kind of theme, but it also has to do with this energy of reciprocity and generosity and service. So the more that you amplify your relationship to what is the true sense of value that you have, like really tapping into that abundance mindset of what you have right now and how is that connected to the healing you're doing when it comes to ancestral or family karma, then you have more to bring to those exchanges and elevate the exchanges that you come into agreement with. I love this. This is about appreciating the good that comes from our past. So maybe there's also a little bit for Gemini rising about needing to reflect on how you're still carrying memories or stories about where you come from that are inhibiting you from getting the richness of where you come from. How can you reframe or, rewire those narratives so that they support you to say, well, you would never be who you are or where you are today if none of that ever happened. So there's something abundant. There's some kind of like hidden treasure in just reframing that and changing that relationship to a positive nostalgia instead of potentially a negative nostalgia. I hope that's helpful, Gemini rising. We're going to go ahead and shift into Cancer rising. All right. So Cancer rising, how have you been working with Saturn since 2023? Around developing your authority and your maturity in relationship to ninth house topics. This is the place of kind of answering the call. Have you felt like there's been a call to answer a destiny that you've been taking more seriously since March 2023? This is also the place where we establish our relationship to spirituality, our worldviews, our belief systems. So, how have you been working consistently over time to mature and develop your relationship to those things? And also, what lessons have you learned about developing mastery and the value of really investing in developing that mastery? Is there something you've been investing in, and where do you stand currently? And what have you determined is worth going the distance? I was thinking about how the ninth house is related to long distance or foreign travel and these like journeys that we go on that kind of expand us into a state that we previously weren't tapped into. And so with Saturn transiting the ninth house, it's almost like, where have you learned to have this sense of endurance about seeing something all the way through, of really committing to the long-term plan or trajectory of the things that you're investing in? And this Pisces total lunar eclipse is going to bring you the fated changes in circumstances, maybe major completions or endings related to these matters that you've been working on with Saturn since March 2023. So this is a major turning point. This is a karmic ripening and a reflection and a reward of whatever you've been putting in, whatever you've been seeding. It's time to take that turning point and start to really propel yourself forward into this next chapter. You might be hearing those echoes from the past telling you what's standing in the way of the fresh beginnings, what changes you really need to make or bring to a close around matters of the third house. So this has to do with your communication styles and patterns. It has to do with your relationship to your daily rhythms and routines, your everyday, what do you wake up and do? And what do you do in between, all the way to when you go to bed? Your relationships with peers and also siblings or close friends, and your investment in developing skills in order to really have a greater self-confidence in yourself. It's like, how are you learning to reorient your relationship to being a beginner at something? The third house is where we begin a new skill, where we have to be the beginner in order to get to that ninth house place of mastery. So what do you need to let go? What's blocking you from starting a new skill or developing something that's actually going to build a greater sense of self-confidence and character in the long term? So thinking with the Mercury Sun cazimi, the South Node, like what can you eliminate in your schedule, Cancer rising? And how can you start looking for new ways to reroute yourself when you start hitting those really old dead ends? It could be a dead end that's a perspective, like a certain way of thinking about something or perceiving something. It could also be a dead end when it comes to your communication style. This is asking you to start to open yourself. There's a new way to route yourself through these things. And as you are willing to release these patterns, as you're willing to clear that space, let go of the dead end patterns and try something new, be a beginner, pay attention. Mercury Sun cazimi is going to give you clues. It's going to give you clarity and insights to tell you what are the next best steps for you to take in order to move you forward on the future path that you're seeking and so ready. I know my Cancer risings are so ready. It's like it's probably so much more simple than you think. It's more about how you think than what you think you have to do to get there. And you've hopefully been feeling this wind at your back with Jupiter in Cancer. I know in the beginning it was a little rough because there was that square to Saturn, but really Jupiter is here to help you and give wind at your back for the entire year that Jupiter is in Cancer through the summer of 2026. But at the time of this total lunar eclipse, you will feel Jupiter in Cancer bringing the wind at your back, uplifting and accelerating the momentum of your future trajectory if you lean into trusting and prioritizing your focus on the first house, on yourself, on your self-image, on your relationship to your mental and physical well-being, your sense of vitality, and also your sense of self-trust and direction and purpose. And so how can you expand a confidence in trusting your gut? You're a Cancer rising. You need to trust your gut. You're ruled by the moon. Your intuition is on fire. What are you learning about expanding this, about trusting this? Jupiter wants to help you, but you have to trust yourself. And also, how can you, Cancer rising, how can you elevate your actions moment to moment to really match and align with the intentions that you are putting out into the world? This intention for who it is that you want to be, your intentions, your ideals. How are you showing up? That is an embodiment of those ideals, of those intentions, of those dreams. The more you put your focus on yourself and how you show up, regardless of what's happening around you, the more Jupiter is going to bring that wave and propel you forward. Okay, Cancer rising. Let's do your card. Okay, well, we've got the Four of Pentacles. It did come out reversed. So to me, this says that you are stubbornly clinging to an old way of being. You are stubbornly needing to let go of this sense of, well, this is how I have found a sense of security of who I am, a sense of confidence and how I'm recognized in the world. And this eclipse is saying, like, you have to let that go. You have to recognize that this is actually insecurity masking as security. It's also a gripping and sense of control. Like, how can you let go of control? How can a release, a softening of your grip? It kind of is really feeling like not just trusting your gut and your intuition, but also trusting like the magic of the universe to work with that. Like, you are not stuck and limited to the resources you've had before. There's more resources out there. It could be so much more than just 4 pentacles. Babe, you can get to like King of Pentacles, but you gotta be willing to like stop holding so tightly to the 4 that you have and trust that there's more waiting for you and waiting for you to trust yourself and the idea that there's more pentacles. All right, so is this resonating, Cancer rising? If it is, please comment below. Let me know how it's feeling, what it's bringing up for you. And because Cancer risings have so much going on and those grand water trines coming up, if you're a Cancer rising, if you're looking for more one-on-one guidance and personal specifics on how to work with these transits, I do have one-on-one limited availability consultations linked below. We're going to go ahead and go to Leo rising, where this eclipse is shining this light on transformation and resources. Leos, this is a big initiation into claiming your light. And part of that is about sometimes going into those dark spaces so that you can clear the debris that are casting shadows on your ability to really see the full radiance and power of you, your light. So Leo, since March 2023, how have you been working with Saturn to mature and develop authority in your relationship to matters of your 8th house? This is about coming into agreements with other people. This is the place where we get into these collaborations or these contracts where we exchange resources with others. We say, I will receive this from you, and in return, I will give you this. So on that, it can also have to do with inheritances or debts. And this eclipse is really asking you to look at what is the work that you've been doing with Saturn on saying, okay, what is my responsibility and what is not? How have I maybe had some unhealthy codependent behaviors, or maybe an overly independent, like a toxic dependence could be showing up here as well. The eighth house is also this place of major transitions. It talks about this space kind of between where some of our mental anguish can come up, our greatest fears, those kind of hidden grievances and feelings and anxieties. So, how is Saturn asking you to develop a more mature, emotionally mature relationship with processing those things when they come up, specifically related to major changes and transitions in your life, whether it feels in your control or out of your control? I feel like there's this level of impermanence that's really a part of the eighth house. It has to do with our relationship to impermanence, our relationship to this flux and flow of life. The wheel is always turning. And how has Saturn been teaching you how to stand in the center of yourself amidst the highs and the lows, amidst the unknown and the in betweens? So, what lessons have you learned about the value of pausing to process in the spaces in between in great change? What have you determined since March 2023 is valuable for entering into agreements with others? Like, how has your standard of contract and exchange changed, matured, developed? And also, what still needs to happen? So we've got this final chapter of Saturn in Pisces, and this is your chance to work with that, to maybe make some final upgrades and developments and really setting those standards for yourself when it comes into those exchanges with others. This Pisces total lunar eclipse is coming into your eighth house, where it's going to bring some sort of dated changes and circumstances, some maybe major completions around these topics that you've been working on. Is there some kind of contract that's finally coming to a close? Is there a debt that you're finally paying off? That could be a material, monetary debt. It could also be a karmic, kind of ancestral, emotional debt. Whatever this eclipse is bringing up is this ripening, this kind of karmic ripening and reflection of all of the intentions and efforts that you've been putting in with Saturn and Pisces since March 2023. So don't be afraid of endings. Don't be afraid of these completion points. If there's a contract that's coming to a close, I want you to really open yourself to consider on a bigger, greater scale, like what did that contract represent? And how can I allow this eclipse to help me close what was toxic or unhealthy or draining about the dynamics of that contract so that I can get into greater, more life-giving contracts going forward? Leo rising, you might be hearing these echoes from your past telling you what's standing in your way from these fresh new beginnings, what changes need to happen, or cycles, long-standing patterns need to come to a close when it comes to matters of your second house. So, what is it about your relationship to money, your relationship to resources, to what it is that you have as a resource that you bring to the table? There's something here that you've been holding, some old baggage, some old story, something that has been preventing you from really getting the most out of those eighth house exchanges. And so the cazimi clarity that's coming for the Leo risings, it's wanting you to really see what keeps you stuck in a lack mentality. What is it that keeps you in a sense of diminished worth or value about what you bring to the table? And what beliefs can you really let go of at the time of this eclipse, the week of this cazimi? How can you invest more into yourself? How can you locate what are my actual innate talents and gifts that I maybe haven't been giving credit to because of some weird old karmic, not karmic, I don't know, pattern that you're carrying? Let the baggage go, Leo. You've got something to offer. And this eclipse, this cazimi, it wants you to finally wake up to that and start to own that and also invest into that even more. Pay attention to what this cazimi wants to give you in terms of new clarity, maybe new insight and little clues about the best steps, like the best first steps that you can take in order to move forward into the new future trajectory. That cazimi wants to give you this boost of confidence that maybe you've never done it this way before. Maybe you've never offered your value in this way, but you can and you're ready and it's time. This cazimi is going to help you with that. And you're going to feel Jupiter in Cancer. You're going to feel that wind at your back, uplifting and accelerating your momentum into the future trajectory, into these fresh new chapters and beginnings. The more that you lean into trusting and prioritizing matters of your 12th house. So, Leo rising, the more you actually lean into doing the inner work, the more you lean into focusing on structuring solitude as a daily practice, really prioritizing that, and also acknowledging your self-sabotaging patterns in relationship to everything we're talking about. That's what's going to bring the more blessings into your life. Jupiter in Cancer is going to help you if you're willing to expand your capacity for grief and for rest into your daily life. You know, you're a Leo rising. Like, everybody loves when a Leo rising enters the room. You're like this energy ball and magnet, lights up the room. We're like, yes, Leo rising's here. But Jupiter in Cancer is like, okay, babe, but like, go enjoy your own light away from the world. And the more you do that, it's like you're like recharging your power, the power of your light, the power of your magnetism. And also, Leo risings, you need to lean into those closures. You need to lean into those endings. The 12th house is this place where we have to find this sense of healing and resolution with what has come to an end, what is over. How can we let go? And so leaning into finding an internal state of healing, resolution with any kind of completions, any kind of closures, and also a healing relationship with grief. The more that you do this, the more that Jupiter in Cancer and really just all of these upcoming transits can support you to move forward so that when you do share your light, Leo rising, it doesn't feel like you're being used and abused. It doesn't feel like if I give my light, I'm drained in the process. What if you actually got more energy every time you gave energy? Just putting it out there. Okay. I'm like riffing on Leo rising, so we're going to keep going. Let's go ahead. Let's pull a card. All right, Leo rising, we got the Temperance card. So this is the major arcana card. And in this card, she is standing with 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot in the water. And this is a card for Sagittarius. And it's on one hand all about balance. What's coming to me when I see this card is I'm thinking about how Sagittarius in the cycles of the seasons is the turning point where we move from darkness into growing light. And so there's this balance around trusting that the more you balance your time in the dark, like those 12th house matters, those 8th house feelings, those endings, those releases, the more you balance with 1 foot in the dark, trusting that that is what pivots you towards the light, like not losing sight of the direction of where you're going in the light that comes, the new chapters that begin when we're willing to actually close those old chapters, the more you're going to gain. The more this eclipse is going to feel like a fated, positive, supportive turning point versus a chaotic, out of your control, scary turning point. And, you know, this card is also about balance. So really just check in with yourself. Like, you need to make sure that you're doing your day-to-day, like get your shit done, get your to-do list, like what do you got to get done on the material world? Don't get lost, you know? And also make sure that you're balancing that with the time away from the world. Based off everything we talked about, it really feels like Leo risings are needing to really recognize and receive the reward of the investments they've made in not just giving to the world, but also stepping away. So knowing the more that you fill one cup, it can fill the other, right? She's like literally pouring water back and forth in these cups. We're going to now move into Virgo rising. This eclipse is focusing on relationships and your identity. So Virgos, this Pisces total lunar eclipse is asking you, since March 2023, how have you been working with Saturn to develop the maturity and deepen your sense of authority and responsibility and commitment in regards to your seventh house of partnerships. These can be romantic partnerships. Maybe there's some Virgo risings that have gotten married, or maybe there's been an initiation into a new level of commitment that's required more effort and responsibility and commitment or sacrifice from you since March 2023. And not just romantic partnerships, but business partnerships or any sort of one-on-one interaction that we have. It could be like our competitors or even our relationship to our clients if we're in any kind of client work, like an astrologer or a coach. So, Virgo risings, what have you been learning about the value of commitment and the value of yourself and your feelings and needs when it comes to your committed partnerships? What are the things that you've matured? How have you developed better boundaries in your relationships? And how has that actually allowed you to grow a deeper sense of intimacy in your connections? So, what is the effort you've been putting in here? How is it paying off? And how do you want to close out this final chapter of Saturn and Pisces at the end of this year? This Pisces total lunar eclipse is going to bring some fated changes in your circumstances, some potential major turning points, some major completions or closures around this area of your life. It's a reflection of whatever work you've been putting in. So the sacrifices you've made, the changes you've up-leveled, the responsibilities you've taken on, and also the boundaries you've put in place and started saying, no, I can't do that. Or maybe the relationships you've let go of. This is going to bring a reflection of that. It's going to be a reward or a ripening, like a karmic ripening of these intentions and efforts. Virgo risings, you might be hearing echoes from your past that are showing you what is still standing in the way of truly moving forward, of starting these fresh new beginnings, new chapters in life. What is it that needs to end or needs to come to a close and change in order for those things to happen? And so all of that is happening around the area of your first house. And so these are the themes of our self-image, our identity, our sense of personal purpose, and also our overall physical and mental well-being and vitality. So what is it that is very obviously ready for you to acknowledge the things that worked in regards to how I move through the world, the ways in which I navigated relationships or different circumstances, how I presented myself? Well, how are those not working for you anymore? What echoes from your past around the ways you've maybe always acted in order to receive a certain sort of recognition that are just outdated and actually preventing you from moving forward into the future in a way that feels more energizing versus draining or depleting? Also, you can ask yourself, what is it that is like this past baggage around self-care that is preventing you from taking care of yourself? Is there something here that's being shown during this Mercury Sun crossing the South Node, coming into this cazimi, that's showing you all the reasons or ways or the baggage that's preventing you from saying, I first and foremost matter, and I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to prioritize myself. As you open yourself up to making these changes, pay attention to what clues or what clarity and new insights start to come forward with that Mercury Sun conjunction, that Mercury cazimi in that following days of the eclipse. That's going to show you what it is that you can do differently and kind of like your next best steps to take around this area of your life. And Virgo risings, the way that you are going to feel the Jupiter in Cancer, bringing this sort of wind to your back, this acceleration and momentum, uplifting you, carrying you into the future and your future trajectory, is by really leaning into trusting and prioritizing your focus on matters related to the 11th house. So this has to do with getting in touch with who are the people that support me, my friends, my alliances. What are the different communities and networks on a social and collective level that I can lean into for support. Maybe there's this opportunity to receive some support or some help from these aligned benefactors of the 11th house. And also leaning into expanding your hopes, your visions, your dreams, and ambitions for the future. How can you really let yourself go bigger in this area or take up more stage in these collective circles? Jupiter is also asking you to expand your faith in your goals and ambitions. And how can you elevate the potential of these future goals and ambitions or hopes and visions by aligning yourself into these alliances with people that have this shared, intention, this shared vision, and they're going to put just as much in as you're willing to put in. So this is like expand and amplify the alliances that are the most aligned during this window. All right, so that's your horoscope. Let's go ahead and pull your card and see what the tarot has to say for you, Virgo. Virgo, you have the Ace of Pentacles and the Magician, which actually came out reversed. So, what power are you not tapping into, Virgo? This is like a Virgo rising is somebody who has all the best methods and has like access to all of the best ideas and tools to implement ideas, you know what I mean? Like to bring things into form and function. But the Magician reverse is like, what tools are you not using? What tools are you not resourcing? It's like the Magician is trying to create its vision, it's trying to manifest, but it's forgetting to use the cup of connection. I mean, actually, you know what? Let's take into consideration that you pulled Ace of Pentacles. So there's some sort of like new investment, a new venture, a new project. There's something that is like this golden coin and it's a fresh beginning. And you're not tapping into it as much as you could be, or as much as you could really receive the power that you already have within. So maybe there's also a sense of like a lack mentality. Do you need to connect to the resource or the tool of your ability to feel into more than enough, to tap into the idea of unlimited resources available to you? If you've got something that you want to put into motion, you want to bring into form or make real, this Pisces lunar eclipse, it's telling you you have the power, but you have to take your power back. And part of that is trusting in your idea, in the new venture, the new beginning, and in trusting that you have the resources to make it happen. If we take into consideration your horoscope, it's like, it's probably your people. It's probably some sort of network or collective group. There's a benefactor that wants to help you. Virgo, you don't have to do it all yourself. You don't have to do it all perfect, and you don't have to do it all yourself. So maybe you need to invest in a new alliance to support this new future trajectory that you're moving into. It's also thinking about how much you've been putting into that 7th house with Saturn and Pisces. I hope that's been opening you and maturing your ability to receive a healthy, functional interdependence between the people that you're committed to. And it's like this eclipse could be this really magical turning point of saying, yes, and I'm ready to even open myself up to receive even more help. And by doing that, I actually resource myself and my power even more. So that's Virgo rising. Virgo rising, how are you feeling? Comment below. How are you doing after that Virgo new moon square Uranus? Did you have a breakthrough? Did you feel like everything broke down? Did it finally lead to a breakthrough? Is it both? Is it none? Let me know how you're feeling. If any of this resonates, I'd love to hear Virgo rising. Now, Libra rising, your routines, health, and career are all in the spotlight. So Libra risings, since March 2023, how have you been working with Saturn and Pisces to develop your maturity and your authority related to 6th house themes and matters? This is the place where we develop our routines, our systems and structures, so that we have a greater capacity to do more without having to expend more energy or to waste our energy, right? So how is Saturn helping you develop and mature these structures, these daily systems? Maybe your daily lifestyle and habits. Maybe you've developed some new relationships to discipline or to body and healthcare. Also, you can think about this Saturn and Pisces transit as really helping you discern what is worth the effort. A sixth house transit is about really connecting to the things that we devote ourselves to, our efforts to consistently, day after day. And so, what are you learning about showing up, about rising to maybe things that have felt challenging, of taking on more authority to say, I'm somebody who can totally figure it out, work it out, and not feeling totally burnt out in the meantime? This Pisces total lunar eclipse in your sixth house, it is bringing these fated changes in circumstances, these major endings or completions related to all of these efforts that you've been putting in with Saturn and Pisces since March 2023. So, what hard work is ready to pay off? What grind is ready to take a turning point of fruition, of karmic fruition and ripening? And you might be hearing these echoes from the past that are going to be telling you very clearly what it is that is still standing in the way from you fully stepping in to these future chapters, these fresh beginnings. Like, what still needs to be released or let go in order for you to go with the momentum of these eclipse cycles? This is happening with that Virgo 12th house, Libra rising. So we're talking about the Mercury sun crossing the South Node in Virgo, and then the Mercury cazimi that's coming right after that. There's something here that is showing you where you need to still address either some lingering self-sabotaging patterns, maybe an unhealthy relationship to solitude or endings. Like, how are you doing with grief? What is your relationship to grief? Do you give it space to process? Do you give it space to move through you? And also, Libra is like, what's stopping you from resting? What is stopping you from giving yourself permission to say, I'm going to just step away from every day, everything, and everybody, and give myself permission to just kind of retreat, restore, and rest? So there's this hidden kind of energy that's coming to light, whether again, it's these hidden self-sabotaging patterns or hidden limiting beliefs. There's something that wants to reconfigure the way that you work with this kind of hidden blind spot of your life. So you're going to get to work out and potentially rewire, reprogram some unconscious stuff, which we can't change what we can't see. And so this cazimi is going to give you a chance to see something maybe you weren't seeing before, and it's up to you if you want to change it. The more that you're willing to address it and change it, the more you clear that baggage, the more there's going to be this new insight and clarity that's going to pour in. And you're going to start to receive these like clues about what is the thing that you need to do next. You're going to get these next best steps to move yourself forward into your future trajectory. And the way that you work with Jupiter in Cancer, the way that you access that feeling of having the wind at your back, something uplifting and accelerating the momentum of moving you forward into these future trajectories, is by tapping into and leaning into trusting and prioritizing all of the work and growth you're doing in areas related to the 10th house. So your career, your public life or public roles, your legacy, and your leadership in the community. How can you expand your courage to be even more visible? How can you have an even greater connection, a greater faith in what it is that's driving you, your ambitions, your career ambitions, both currently and present, and also for the future? Jupiter wants you to take and step into more leadership, more confidence. It wants you to be a little bit more bold when it comes to saying, I'm ready. I'm ready to say yes to opportunity, to responsibility, and to leadership in these areas of my life. And the more that you do that, the more that you put yourself out there and you are willing to show, I have what it takes to lead, and I'm willing to be seen and recognized for what I have to give, the greater that Jupiter can carry you forward. I'm really excited for Libra risings because I feel like there's this opportunity to find this hidden, unconscious kind of blockage. And the moment you do, it's like it just pushes you forward in regards to your career and your ambition. So Libra risings, you'll have to let me know, how are you feeling? How has it been having Jupiter in your 10th house? Like, have you noticed that career changes have been on the front line? Or maybe it's feeling like Jupiter is pointing you in a direction towards building a legacy or working towards a career ambition that feels a little bit more connected, more meaningful and cohesive to a deeper sense of purpose that you might have internally. Go ahead, comment below. Let me know how you're doing. Libra risings, stop it. You got the Six of Wands, and I flipped it reversed. So, Libra risings, like, where are you denying your success? Where are you actually preventing the recognition and success that is just, it's right there. It's right there, but there's something unconscious that's preventing you from really validating it yourself. Like you have to do some sort of internal validation and some sort of reconfiguring around being confident in what you bring to the table and what you're doing, especially when it comes to career and ambitions and the work you've been pouring into that sixth house with Saturn and Pisces. It's like the second you acknowledge that and you say, damn, I've been working, I've been grinding. Yes, I deserve this. I've earned this. Oh my God. Then you get to just ride that horse and receive that recognition, that reward, that promotion. Libra risings. It's just better than you'll let it be. You gotta let it be. You gotta let it be as good as it actually is. So now we're gonna go into Scorpio and Scorpio rising. And this is all about creativity, networks, and wisdom that's being highlighted. We're talking about this Saturn and Pisces transit that's been happening in your fifth house. This was the joy of Venus, the house of good fortune, the place meant for seeking personal pleasure, for creativity, creative self-expression, the place where we go when we find the things that bring us joy, not because they do anything for anybody else, not because they produce anything for any outside reward or recognition, but just for the sake of feeling good and having fun. So for Scorpio rising, how have you been working with Saturn since March 2023? To develop a greater maturity and authority over prioritizing this area of your life? What have you learned about the necessity of really developing boundaries around your creativity or your creative projects? Like, how has your creative life actually been benefiting from greater discipline or a greater sense of commitment and responsibility? How have you taken responsibility for your pleasure? This is also the house of children. So how has Saturn been teaching you, or what lessons have you been going through in regards to learning what it means to be the caretaker of something, to nurture something into growing, into thriving? And maybe there's some boundary work that's been happening there as well. So really thinking Scorpio risings, you have this final chapter of Saturn and Pisces. Think about how far you've come and what do you want Saturn to leave you with? If Saturn could really guarantee this solid, unshakable foundation of your relationship to joy, your access to your creativity, to your joy, what would that look like? And what do you want Saturn to help you do to like make that real? Or maybe you have a creative project that you're like, Saturn, help me actually put this to life, bring it to form, to get the discipline or whatever it is that I need to like make this a reality. This Pisces total lunar eclipse, this is going to be bringing those fated changes of your circumstances, your major completions or major closures around this area of life. It's going to be reflecting back to you the work and the effort and the intentions you've been putting in over time with that Saturn and Pisces transit since March 2023. And it's going to be showing you this major turning point that's rewarding that or reflecting that. So pay attention to what circumstances are shifting in your reality that are really propelling you into an even deeper relationship with your creativity and your creative life and your connection to joy and to happiness and pleasure. And Scorpio rising, you might be hearing echoes from your past that are giving you clarity around what is still standing in your way from really receiving these fresh new beginnings. What changes really need to happen? Like what long-standing patterns are ready to come to a close in relationship to matters of your 11th house? So this is identifying what are these old patterns or these like contracts, I want to say, or commitments. We're talking about 11th house matters like friendships and alliances. So maybe there's somebody or there's a friendship, alliance, a group that you've been a part of for so long and it's actually life draining. Like maybe it used to be really supportive for you, but the 11th house is our place of hopes and visions for the future. It is where we need to surround ourselves with the environment of people and relationships that are going to support us to believe and the things that we want to create in the world, our future goals and ambitions. So, what about your circles, your collective circles, your social circles and networks are really pointing to what isn't really giving that life or helping you to thrive? And you're being asked to really release at this point with that Mercury cazimi. The more that you're willing to acknowledge and release or bring things to a close around this area of life, maybe it's releasing an old vision for the future, an old dream, a dream that you've been holding on to, but it's just been taking up space, and carrying it forward is actually just depleting your energy that you could be putting and pouring into where energy is already flowing. And so the more you do that, the more you're willing to do that and release in this area of life, the more that you're going to start to receive this new clarity, some cazimi insights, some clues into what it is that you can do differently, some next best steps when it comes to moving into your future timeline, your future trajectory. So be willing to see the baggage that you might still be carrying around this area. And if you release it, you open yourself up to receive something that is just so much more nourishing. And it's like, I'm imagining right now talking about this, like you put a plant in a pot and it's not doing so well in this environment and the soil in this pot. You don't blame the plant or the flower, right? There's like that wisdom about you relocate the plant into a better environment. That's what I'm getting out of this. Like Scorpio rising, what environment do you need to put yourself in? What people do you need to surround yourself with? What people do you need to release, cut a cord, or set different boundaries and limitations on the energy that you put in so that you can open yourself up to receive those more supportive, collaborative, energy, life giving relationships and networks. And Scorpio rising, you are going to be feeling the Jupiter in Cancer wind at your back, the uplifting and accelerating momentum into your future trajectory, your fresh beginnings. The more that you lean into trusting and prioritizing your focus on ninth house topics. So the more you pour in to the places where you are developing mastery, is there something that you are holding, like a treasure of wisdom that you could be giving out to the world? It could also have to do with leaning into your worldview. So your philosophical worldview, your spiritual worldview. What is your spirituality like? What is your relationship to spirituality? This is really asking you to step into a place of faith, but also faith in the sense that you're here for a reason and you have some sort of specific calling or destiny. Do you trust that? How could you trust that more? How could you lean into that more? And is there any way for you to invest in deepening your mastery in any of these places where you have these skills or these talents or this wisdom that could be of benefit to share with others and be of benefit for your future trajectory? And also to really ask Jupiter to help you elevate your belief system so it matches big dreams that you might have. And don't deny those big dreams. Like, own the big dreams first, create that vision board, and then lean into Jupiter's help to really expand and elevate your worldview, your belief system to match the potential of creating, right? So you have to think about everything differently. You have to imagine and believe and have faith and follow that faith for Jupiter to give you the most help. So Scorpio rising, how does that resonate? How are you feeling? Drop a comment or share this episode with a friend if any of this is resonating. All right, we have to pull our card for our Scorpio rising. Okay, so it is the Four of Swords that came out. So this card reminds me a lot of the Hanged Man energy, but it's not just about seeing something from a different perspective like we would read the Hanged Man. The difference is that in the Four of Swords, if you can see that, there are four swords over this person that is lying what looks like on top of a bed or maybe even a coffin. And the swords are over the solar plexus, the heart, and the head. And so this really ties in what we're talking about, bringing an end, a completion to thoughts, thinking, belief systems. So there's something around allowing the death of these old. They feel old. They feel really old. thought patterns. And it's like there is this rejuvenation, there is this renewal and this new life that can come forth. When you think differently about things, when you have a different belief about what's possible, you're willing to follow your heart more, and your actions, your will are going to align with your heart. Like, it's all connected. So make sure, Scorpio risings, that you're allowing yourself to take that time to step away and really, if you have any sort of meditation or contemplation practice, this is really saying drop into that so that you can receive this awareness and this opportunity to release and renew. Scorpio rising, thank you. Now let's move on to Sagittarius rising. All right, Sag rising. So here we go. For you, since March 2023, how have you been working with Saturn and really developing a more mature relationship when it comes to the value of your foundations, of your root? So what is it that you've done or committed to when it comes to developing a sense of enriching your internal connection and feeling of internal security, of emotional security and safety? How have you matured your relationship to family dynamics or to any kind of ancestral karma? Have you been able to kind of lean in and do the work around your root system, where you come from, and also the place in which you call home now? This Pisces total lunar eclipse on September 7th, this is going to be bringing and highlighting some fated changes to circumstances around your home, around your foundation or family. So there could be some really fated major completions or closures around relationships with family or ancestral karma. If there's a big move on the horizon, there might be an actual physical move that happens. Maybe you actually change your living location. Whatever happens, it's really this karmic ripening of the development you've been putting effort and intention into with Saturn and Pisces around how you define home and what you want home to feel like. So really pay attention. What is this turning point that's happening for you? I'd love to hear. Comment below if any of this is resonating, Sagittarius rising. Are you feeling any greater sense of inspiration by dropping and rooting deeper in stillness and home and yourself? Or is there still more to learn here? And where you might be hearing these echoes from the past, this clarity that's coming to reveal what's preventing you from really launching into fresh beginnings, the changes that need to happen, the long-standing patterns that need to come to a close. Sag rising, this is your 10th house. This is your career, your ambitions, your public roles and recognition, your legacy and relationship to leadership. What is it that is happening right now that is revealing to you some sort of baggage that you're still carrying that is preventing you from reaching an even greater sense of accomplishment and success? What is your relationship to success that is outdated? It's outgrown. You need to let something go here. And also, what patterns are diminishing your fruition of success in 10th house matters? Where do you hold yourself back from being a leader or from being recognized as somebody who has something to offer to lead with and role model? This is something you're going to want to open yourself up to being revealed, to having greater awareness. This Mercury Sun conjunction, cazimi, that's happening in Virgo in your 10th house, it's going to show you what it is that's holding you back. And if you're willing to release, if you're willing to let something go here, then it's going to start to open you up into new clarity, new ideas, new insight. There's new clues about the best next steps that you can take to propel yourself forward into the future. It feels like you've got to root deeper in order to rise higher. And so how do you, Sag rising, tap into accessing more of that Jupiter in Cancer? That energy that wants to uplift and accelerate your momentum into the future and into the next phase of your future trajectory. This is about you leaning into trusting more and prioritizing matters of your 8th house. So the 8th house deals with topics like shared resources, So our connections and collaborations and contracts with others, the exchanges and agreements we come into where we say, I give this and you give that. It has to do with our connection and our relationship to intimacy. It also has to do with the place where we feel those really uncomfortable feelings that always come up and accompany big change. The things that come up in the eighth house always have to do with this major space of transition. And that could be the feelings of grief after a big loss. It could be the anguish of fear and worry that comes up with the unknown of great change on the horizon. The eighth house is this space in between. It has to do with not only our shared resources and our contracts and connections with others, but also these places of grief, these places of uncomfortable feelings that come up in the spaces in between what was and what will be. So, Jupiter in Cancer, it's trying to help you trust in deeper intimacy and the process and unfolding of change, the messiness of it all. This is what Jupiter in Cancer is trying to gift you. It's giving you these new expansions of capacity and tolerance to really receive the benefit of deeper intimacy, of being able to hold center in the midst of so much moving or changing around you. Imagine what it would be like to be able to hold impermanence in a state of deep trust. How can you lean into that? How can you lean into expanding that capacity? And also, how can you elevate your standards for the ways in which you enter into agreements with others? If we take into consideration everything else that we've been talking about, the astrology of this eclipse, your 10th house and your 4th house, there's a lot here, Sagittarius, around what it is that's preventing you from being able to reach farther destination in life because of maybe these fears of commitment, the fears of the, unknown when it comes to if I commit to you. There's so much unknown of the future. What if you change? What if I change? There's so much that we can't control. And the combination of this with the 4th house topics, with Saturn really asking you to root much, much deeper before you go out and have all your fun, is very, very loud. This is a moment that could be so pivotal for you. If you're willing to accept the invitation, this might feel like being stuck at home in like timeout, or when you're grounded growing up and everyone's at the party and you want to go, but you're grounded for the weekend. Imagine if you're only grounded for the weekend, but then you can go to a party in another country the next month. So the more you're willing to take that step back, you're willing to root down, and you're willing to show up in a consistent way, if you're really willing to take responsibility and ownership for the commitments and what it takes to be committed or to see something through, that messiness, that impermanence, the farther you're going to be able to go, the more fun you're going to be able to have in the future. So it doesn't have to be feeling this like downer, I'm grounded forever. It's so temporary. And the more you lean into it, the more fun you're going to have. I really wish for you to feel this whole new idea of home, of stillness, of commitment. And it doesn't have to be commitment to everything or everyone, but there are some things that are worth our commitment. There are some things that are worth us sticking through, And so what is that for you? Let's go ahead. Let's pull the tarot card for our Sag rising. All right. You need to stop draining your energy and bullshit drama. Are you bored in starting shit that doesn't matter? And is it just keeping you stuck in a loop that is actually long-term boring? Are you stuck in something, in a circumstance, in a life, in a reality that's so boring, so you're just creating drama in order to make it fun? You gotta let yourself be bored, babe. In like a healthy way. Okay, I will show you. So 3 cards came out, all upright. You've got the Page of Swords. So new ideas, curiosity, you're excited. The Judgment card, a moment of reckoning or karmic testing. And then the 5 of Wands. So when I see these three cards come out, this feels like fighting the wrong fight. This feels like denying the change. And it's almost like you need to develop a new commitment to what's worth fighting for. Withdrawing this sword of the Page of Swords from these unnecessary drama, these unnecessary fights or battles. You need to take ownership of yourself and your life and your trajectory. And you need to hold it. Like he's literally holding it back here and wait. Don't waste it. Don't waste your energy. Don't waste what you have and how far you can go because you're scared to just stay still. There's something also avoiding this reckoning, but I think the reckoning is not so much around an actual confrontation. Feels more like the reckoning or the test is for you to withdraw from the unnecessary drama and stop having so much internal conflict around what's worth giving my energy. I don't know. What if I don't want to just get stuck on this commitment and then I can't do this? Like those are limiting, self-sabotaging beliefs and behaviors, and they're keeping you from actually reaping the rewards of something so much more fulfilling and inspiring. I mean, Sag, if you don't fight the stillness and you don't fight the idea of commitment and the unknown that comes with that, you're the only one holding yourself back. That's what I'm getting from this reading for you, Sag. Let me know if that resonates. We're now on to Capricorn rising, where it's all about your voice, your vision, and the relationship sphere that is shifting. So Capricorn and Capricorn rising since March 2023. How have you been working with Saturn and Pisces to develop your maturity and your authority when it comes to your third house matters? So in the third house, we're talking about our daily rituals and rhythms, our routines, and also our relationship to our local community. Like, how do we feel in our local environment? What is our relationship like with the everyday of our life? And those peer relationships, our relationships with our siblings. The third house also has to do with your communication skills and any kind of skill development that has to start with some sort of beginner mindset. So, what has been your relationship with the repetition and consistency discipline around any skills that Saturn's been asking you to prioritize since March 2023? What lessons have you learned about boundaries when it comes to your daily schedule and your daily rhythms? What rituals have you learned to be more disciplined about? And how has that impacted a greater sense of spaciousness and productivity and joy in your daily rhythm? This Pisces total lunar eclipse in your third house is bringing all of this context to the forefront and bringing a fated change in your circumstances, potentially major completions or closures related to these themes and these topics. And it's all reflecting the work you've been putting in since March 2023. So, Capricorn rising, are you ready to be rewarded if you've been putting in this effort? What would that look like? What would that feel like? There's some sort of major turning point. If there's something you've been pouring yourself into day after day, really developing more discipline and consistency around, pay attention to how this eclipse is like suddenly turning a corner and bringing those things forward into a new chapter or a sense of completion. Maybe you're somebody who's been working on a book and this eclipse is like, it's finally ready. It's finally complete. It's bringing it to a close. I'm really eager to hear, Capricorn rising, which part of these third house themes do you resonate with the most? And comment below. Tell me, what do you feel like this fated turning point of the eclipse is bringing for you? The echoes from your past Capricorn rising that you're going to be hearing during this full moon eclipse week that are preventing you from actually entering into these fresh new chapters, these fresh new beginnings, these changes that you really need to address, or these long-standing patterns that are ready to come to close or completion are surrounding themes related to your ninth house. So there's something about addressing what baggage do you carry around the idea of destiny, of your calling. What is your current sense of worldview and philosophy or relationship to spirituality that is just no longer serving the trajectory that you're on? This is going to show you during the Mercury cazimi conjunct that South Node in Virgo in your ninth house, how you need to just release, shed, bring to a close the paradigms, the beliefs, the programming that is no longer a match to these big dreams that you have. What would it be like to start to actually match your belief system, your worldview, to the part of you that answers the call, that feels that sense of destiny? And also, maybe there's like a journeying in that ninth house sense to your past in order to retrieve something, to bring it forward, like this echo of time that comes forward. And it requires you to do the journey deep, 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 like deeper, further, farther in that long distance way of the ninth house into your past in order to really see what it is. What is the baggage? What is the belief? Where does that come from? And can I release it? Is it not actually even in the direction on the map of my future, of my calling, my personal calling? The more Capricorn rising that you're willing to wake up and see and release these things, or bring these long-standing patterns of belief and relationships to spirituality or worldview that don't serve you to an end, the more you're going to make yourself available to receive this new clarity, this new insight and potential clues that are giving you ideas for the next best steps to take. These are going to come from a different mindset, a different worldview. So you have to make yourself available to that. The way that you're going to tap into Jupiter in Cancer, the way you're going to get that uplifting acceleration of momentum into your new chapters, your future trajectory, is by leaning into and trusting and prioritizing your seventh house matters. So the more that you can expand your relationship to interpersonal dynamics, and also your happiness in that equation when it comes to these one-on-one interactions, whether it's a client relationship in context, it's a business partnership, or it's a romantic partnership that you're committed to. How can you lean into expanding what it is that actually brings you life, brings you energy? How can you bring more of yourself into that equation and commit more to the people that really amplify and energize that for you? Jupiter also wants to help you by asking you to elevate your trust in healthy, functional, interpersonal dynamics. So where can you lean into? Like, what relationships are serving as this mirror for you to be more of yourself? The more you invest into those people and those commitments, the more that Jupiter can bring you that help and that support and that feeling of the wind at your back. All right, let's pull your card. You've got two cards. They both came out upright. You've got the Five of Pentacles and the World, which is the Saturn card. So yeah, you are stuck looking at who let you down, and you need to see that you're past that. Like, there is some cycle that is complete. You're done. You might be like, I know that I'm done, but you're still looking at it. You're still looking back at how it didn't serve you, and you're still feeling bad about that versus looking at maybe the growth that the completion, this World card, the growth, the recognition of completing the cycle can give you, and looking at these other two cups that are upright. It's about focusing on whatever you're completing and how it's serving what is going to be new and exciting coming in, and not so much focused on what failed you, what didn't work, or what left you, emotionally unsatisfied. Capricorn rising, give yourself permission to say, I did the work, I completed the cycle, and I am the one who has to give myself permission to feel good about it and to open myself up to acknowledging what's here now. because of the work that I've completed. Don't miss out on those cups that are waiting for you just behind your ability to look at them. So from Capricorn, we move on to Aquarius rising. Okay, Aquarius rising. But let's start by just kind of thinking about since March 2023, how have you been working with Saturn in Pisces to mature and develop your authority, your relationship in regards to matters of the second house? So this is the place of our resources. On a material level, this is money. This is the livelihood that we produce. This is also the place of our talents and our gifts and our recognition and value of what it is that we have to bring to the table. So, Aquarius rising, how have you matured your relationship to resourcing yourself? How have you invested in deepening your sense of value around the talents, the assets, the gifts that you have that provide you a sense of resourcing, the things that you bring to the table? How are you learning how to have more authority to say, yeah, I'm bringing this to the table? And also, what lessons have you learned around taking responsibility over your resources, over your financial health and livelihood? This is a total Pisces lunar eclipse in your second house, and it's going to bring these fated changes in circumstances, these major turning points and potential completions or closures that are bringing to fruition a reflection of these intentions and efforts that you've been putting in with Saturn and Pisces since March of 2023. So if you've been investing in developing your talents and gifts, if you've been investing in developing your sense of abundance and being resourced, and also your maturity around handling and being responsible for these matters of life, this could be a really incredible fruition and turning point of these matters. And you might be hearing these echoes from the past that are bringing you clarity around what still stands in the way of your fresh new beginnings. What changes still need to happen or long-standing patterns need to be addressed before you can truly move forward in matters of your 8th house. This is the place of shared resources. This is the other people's stuff that when we come into agreement with somebody, into a contract or collaboration, we say, I'm willing to offer this in exchange of what you have to offer me. The more that you're willing to release these outdated, long-standing patterns of limitations around receiving help from others or resources from others, or coming into a sense of feeling trust in intimacy, in collaboration, in this idea of exchange and being valued. The more you can release the baggage of your past around this, the more that you're going to open yourself up to receive clarity around what contracts and agreements to say yes to that are going to move you forward. The more that you're willing to release this resistance to change, this resistance to stepping into the transitional, messy space of what was and what will be, and you're willing to say, yes, I will feel it all, and I will trust, and I will hold myself in center through that, the more that you're going to open yourself up to these transitions taking you into fresh new territory. So pay attention. What is it that you're being asked to release? And as you do, look for these clues, look for these new insights or this clarity around what you're ready to say yes to and what the next best steps are to take. The way that you're going to feel and tap into the positive and supportive Jupiter in Cancer, that sense of having the wind at your back, that's going to give you this uplifting, accelerating momentum into the future. The way you tap into that is by really leaning into trusting and prioritizing matters related to your 6th house. So Aquarius rising, this is saying the more you prioritize your self-care, your body, your health and wellness and well-being, the more you're going to benefit. The more you're willing to say no when it comes to giving your time and energy and effort to things that are life draining, energy draining, they don't actually light you up. When you say no to that, when you simplify your schedule and your to-do list, you actually open yourself up to do more and to feel this energy of being able to sustain what it is that you're putting your energy into, to trusting that maybe taking something off of your to-do list or putting your self-care on a higher priority position in the to-do list is what is going to benefit you and carry you forward farther, faster, and it's going to feel better, right? With that Jupiter in Cancer. So let's go ahead. Let's pull this card for Aquarius. All right, Aquarius rising. You got the Eight of Wands. There is some creative momentum that is just like begging to move forward. This is like, get out of your own way, eliminate shit off of your schedule and your to-do list. Where are you giving obligation and duty that feels draining? Because there's something big that can happen really fast the second you're willing to let go. And that comes back to this South Node in Virgo, Mercury, cazimi. What fear do you have around the unknown of letting something go, like letting a chapter close, letting a contract come to an end, really closing some sort of agreement? You have to close the agreement. You have to enter into this space in between, trusting that in that space, there's something really exciting and creative that wants to come through. So dive into the creativity, trust the flow of what's giving energy when you put your energy into it. And that takes us to our final sign of the zodiac, our Pisces rising. This is a total lunar eclipse in your sign, in your first house. So Pisces rising, since March 2023, how have you been working with Saturn in your first house to develop your maturity and your authority over your sense of autonomy? Also, your relationship with your sense of mental and physical well-being, your vitality, your sense of purpose in this life. This Pisces total lunar eclipse is going to bring some fated changes in circumstances. It's going to be this major potential karmic turning point that's going to be this reflection, this recognition, and reward for all of these intentions and efforts you've been putting into with Saturn since March of 2023. So recognize, when you look in the mirror, do you see this new shape of self? How have you really learned lessons around implementing boundaries of self-care, of your energy that you're putting out into the world, and also the things that you're doing that are giving you energy when you do them? How have you gained authority over trusting yourself? There could be this really incredible turning point that's showing you that it's been worth that effort. It's been worth that consistent discipline of trusting yourself, of prioritizing yourself, of giving yourself permission to be recognized for something greater than you were previously. You might be hearing echoes from your past that are going to be telling you what it is that's still holding you back from starting these fresh beginnings. Or maybe there's these long-standing patterns or important cycles that are ready to come to a close around themes related to your seventh house. This has to do with our relationships, our one-on-one commitments, whether that's a romantic partnership and relationship. It could also be business partnerships or maybe even client contracts that you're a part of. It's asking you to really wake up and identify where there might still be some of this old past baggage of what it was in the past, what you expected it to be like to be in these interpersonal, interdependent relationships that's holding you back from receiving what's available to propel you forward in the future trajectory that you're on. So pay attention. What can you release around old limiting patterns, old limiting beliefs when it comes to engaging and committing to these relationships, these dynamics? Considering also your feelings and needs. How have you grown and evolved the participation or the prioritization of your feelings and needs when it comes to these contracts and these commitments and these relationships? This Mercury cazimi that's happening in your seventh house, it wants to give you a new insight, a new clarity in what relationships are really right for you to say yes to, what commitments and what people are really the people you are going to benefit from taking the next steps forward with. So really lean into acknowledging how you can change these dynamics, where you can let go and release and open yourself up to a new paradigm, a new standard of how this operates. And the more that you lean into Jupiter in Cancer, which is in your fifth house, Pisces rising, so the more you lean into trusting and prioritizing your focus on what lights you up. The fifth house is all about this place of seeking personal pleasure. It's our place of creativity and creative self expression. It's our creative projects, our hobbies, it's our joy seeking place in our lives. So the more that you lean into trusting and having faith that when you expand your capacity to make joy a greater priority, the more that Jupiter can really uplift and accelerate your momentum into these fresh new beginnings, into your future trajectory. So it's time to really elevate your connection to creativity and to joy. If you've already been doing that with Jupiter in Cancer, let's take it to the next level. Like, what would it take to take joy to the next level? Pisces rising. All right, so let's go ahead. Pisces rising, we've got your card. It's your time. We've got the Two of Swords for you. So this card is really about, I mean, she's blindfolded, right, with the moon behind her. This is about intuition. This is about indecision and intuition. Pisces rising, you are being given this message that is saying you need to look within. You need to listen within. In any place that you're feeling indecision, you need to tap into more of what you're feeling and that internal wisdom. Your decisions benefit in the Two of Swords and coming more from a place of feeling, of internal clarity and intuition versus some maybe external idea or reason or logic of what's right or wrong. I love this for you, Pisces rising. You've got so much wisdom. There's just this infinite ocean of water and the moon behind her, this waxing crescent moon, this light that's growing. But it requires you to look away from maybe any external like distraction or any external comparison that's preventing you from hearing your own internal wisdom. So, Pisces rising, does this message resonate for you? What are you feeling? How are you feeling this Pisces lunar eclipse, this turning point? What are you ready for? What are you ready to say yes to? What are you ready to let go? Comment below. Let me know. I'd love to hear it. That brings us to the conclusion of this episode of Getting Cozy with the Cosmos. Thank you so much for joining me today. Next week, we're going to round out this final phase of the Virgo new moon lunar cycle before our next eclipse, doing just a traditional episode on the astrology forecasting for that final week. There's quite a lot going on, so a lot of ground to cover, and we'll get there. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and turn your notifications on. That way you're not going to miss any of the future episodes. Thank you everybody for being here. I am wishing everybody major full moon, total lunar eclipse blessings. I will see you next time.